Hi everybody, this is Michelle with Birdie Bloom, and here I have a safari tote. I recently posted a picture of this on both sides. Here's one side and here's the other, and I'm asking you, which side do you think has paint on it? I have removed paint from one of these sides, but the other side still has paint. And the purpose of this video is to show you my process and how I tested it for paint. So let's get to it. Here you're going to see that I'm trying to show you scratch marks on the front of the bag. And these scratch marks were not going away with conditioning and buffing. The bag kind of has like a shine to it. It has a weird texture. It doesn't feel too terrible, but something just didn't feel right, which led me to believe that perhaps this bag had a light coat of paint. It was painted pretty well. It was hard to tell. You can see demarcations here, but that's not from the paint. That's actually probably from fading underneath, normal fading. And then here with the hardware removed, you can see how deep and dark, and it's actually soft and lovely the leather under the hardware is. So what I recommend doing in this case, if you have a really good area, inconspicuous area to test, is you're going to take a Q-tip with acetone, or in this case I used a glazer. You're going to lightly go over the leather that you don't expect to be painted. And as you can see, the very translucent hue of blue, and that is normal because you will pick up dye from the leather. And yeah, I just wanted to show you that is normal. That's to be expected. And sometimes that can be deeper, but it should be kind of translucent. And sorry for the video, but in this case, I'm going to show you, now we're going to test a side that I believe to be painted. And I'm still using really light strokes, and I hope to show you a little bit better here. You can already see it's picking up lots of paint. So that is how I determined that this bag did have a coat of paint on it. And of course I want to remove it. I'm telling you, it made me nervous because you never know what's going to be underneath. I hope just fade. But here also you could see like a demarcation paint line that's near the piping. That's typically where you might see something of the such. It was really hard to see. So here's the bag. I'm going to show you the process of me removing the paint from one side. And if you can recall, let's look back. Oh yeah, we got both sides here. As you can see, a lot of people thought that maybe the pebbly leather was the non-painted side because one side is a little bit more pebbly than the other. There's a Coach metal tag. But as you can see, one side happens to just be smoother than the other, and that's normal. You can see that. It's kind of unique about the bag. So that pebbleness doesn't have anything to do with whether the bag was painted. In this case, both sides are painted at this moment, both sides. Yeah, so I'm just showing it to you. She doesn't look bad, right? But up close, like I said, those scratch marks were there and they weren't going anywhere. The leather kind of was a little squeaky as well. It really wasn't. It wasn't responding the way I expect good leather to respond to good products. And here I'm going to just repeat the process for you again, like a good idea or a good way of testing your leather, showing you how normal uptake of dye looks on acetone, or again, in this case, it's an alcohol acetone combination, how that might look. That is normal. You see that like translucent blue. It's definitely, and the harder you rub, the more dye you'll pick up. So again, just you lightly test it, and you definitely want to condition leather after you do that type of testing. Highly recommend you do it quickly. But yep, so that underneath, I guess this bag was probably painted with the hardware still intact, and then the hardware was likely just cleaned. But I'm going to test the bottom here to show you the difference. Look how pebbly the one side is. Isn't that crazy? Again, light strokes. See what you pick up. Very light strokes here. I'm hardly touching it, and you can already see how deep and saturated that is. That's paint. So Yep. Crazy, crazy. So let's remove it. At this point, I'd already started removing paint in sections. I'm showing you the smoother leather panel on the bottom. I had removed paint and then conditioned. And I did go in sections. Again, it's very harsh on the bag, so you definitely want to make sure you're conditioning properly, but the pebbly leather side is still painted. They're just, again, different textures on the same bag. Love that about this bag. You've seen me remove paint before, so I'm not going to make this too in-depth, but I'll show you a little bit of the process. That's the Inglis leather deglazer that I like to use. And I am really just lightly stroking this bag with the deglazer to remove paint. And I will continuously check to see if I'm still lifting paint or if I'm starting to just get that translucent dye. So I'll continuously, change my the area on the cloth that I'm working when I think I've already removed paint from a panel. And I'm just going to constantly assess to make sure that what I'm doing is still removing paint versus then getting into the leather without the paint. You understand? I don't want to continue to put this acetone on this bag if I don't need to. So removing with acetone until I no longer really see paint coming off, and then I will deep condition the bag. And again, I'm doing it in sections. So here I'm showing you how it's looking more translucent. That looks more like dye versus paint. Just a little bit more, and yep, I am ready to condition the bag. My tried and true leather CPR medium conditioner. I will tell you that I did multiple coats, probably 3, and then let each coat soak for weeks at a time before going back and reassessing. This bag looked like it had a lot of fade, and I was a little concerned that it was going to be really prominent after removing the dye. But with conditioning, it really doesn't look that bad at all. And the leather just feels so much softer now. It's so much nicer. I just still have to remove the paint from the other side of the bag. And I hadn't gotten around to it. I put it to the side for a while because I wanted to kind of talk about it and hadn't really gotten to do that yet either. Just busy. But, yep, right now I'm working on the flap, which I will tell you was actually really dry, so I was really careful with this little flap. The top part of it was where I could just truly sense how dry it was. So yeah, I started out very gentle with this part, very careful. It had a different sound when I was removing the paint. It's just, it's hard to really explain, but when you're working with an area that might be a little bit more supple versus an area that might potentially be a little bit more damaged underneath, you really get a sense of the difference. And so pay attention to that and just be a little bit more cautious, a little bit more careful. So in this case, if I felt like it was getting to be too much, I might have stopped and conditioned. I was able to remove the paint fully because it was really just like a light coat of paint. But I was able to remove it in one sitting here. Again, just being gentle. And then I immediately reconditioned it. And again, after removing the paint, I did let this bag sit for a couple of months, soaking in the conditioner, repeating the process of reconditioning as necessary. And I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. There was fade underneath the bag, and I can show you a little bit more of that. You could see that through the paint though, because it was such a light color of paint. But that's likely why the bag was painted to begin with, to kind of blend that out. This literally soaked up that conditioner, and I probably will have another layer. I'm probably going to go back over that as well at another time, if not tonight. I'm going to put another layer of conditioner on it, and I'm going to let it. If I had finished my sentence here, I would have said sit. I was too involved. I'm going to let it sit. I highly recommend that anytime you are cleaning and conditioning, removing paint and then conditioning, whatever you're doing with your bag, let it sit for a while. And by a while, I don't mean just the next day. I mean days, weeks, potentially months. And you can go from there. Don't make decisions too soon after treatment. So here we are again. This is the painted side. This is kind of now. I removed paint from the other side and I let it sit for months. I'm going to show it to you, but I'm just showing you here why I removed the paint, why I even went through this. Look at all of the scratch marks. Again, those could not come out. I conditioned this bag. Nothing was happening. And now here is the beautiful side with the paint removed. Up close, you can really see this demarcation and the fading of the leather better. It's really not that noticeable otherwise, but it is, the leather just looks so much healthier. You don't see all of the scratch marks. I think it kind of glows. I much prefer the other side. This side is probably going to look beautiful once I remove the paint. I just haven't yet. But yeah, that's what I want you to do, is stay tuned. Hopefully I get to this bag sooner than later and I finish the paint removal process. I do really like this bag. And if you hadn't noticed, the straps are kind of long for a safari tote, and that's because they are not original. Somebody did replace them. And they used a really similar design to the original straps, but they are also are not leather. So yeah, she looks much better, much happier, much healthier. This took months to get to that point. I reconditioned and reconditioned, and here she is.